This November 25th, 2019 regular meeting of the Carmel Clay School Board is called to order. I don't know what that is. We'll adjust that, I'm sure. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We have a number of very special presentations this evening to acknowledge the great accomplishments of some of our high school students and some of our great teachers. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
All board members are present this evening.
Thank you. Please rise and join us for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start with the presentations, I just want to let each group know that we will take a picture of your group after the presentation, except for the foundation award winners. They've already taken their group photo. And then after the last presentation, we will take a short break. For those of you that do not wish to stay for the whole meeting, we understand it is a school night, even though there's only one day left of school this week. So, but I will encourage you to stay because part of tonight's program is update on the strategic plan. And also, while I've got your attention, I'd just like to wish you all a happy and safe Thanksgiving to all our students, families, and staff. Be safe and have a happy holiday. And I will turn the first presentation over to Ms. Andrea Yoakum.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and happy almost break. We're almost there. I'm going to ask Mrs. Bishop and her student Sapna to come up front and join me. My name is Andrea Yoakum, and I'm the World Language Department Chairperson, so I see several faces out in the crowd that I recognize. Tonight we're here to honor Mrs. Bishop and her student Sapna. Mrs. Bishop received the award from the American Association for the Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese, Honored Teacher, Most Influential Teacher for her student Sapna. And I'd like to just give a little bit of information background about Mrs. Bishop, and then Mrs. Bishop is going to talk to us about Sapna's experiences. So not only is Mrs. Bishop one of our Spanish teachers, but she is also our Europe travel coordinator. That entails traveling to Europe for 12, 13 days with 50 students in 2 buses almost every summer. That in and of itself is for an award. That's amazing. As an administrator, when I'm in Mrs. Bishop's room, she conducts a master class in community building and in relationships. She's the kind of teacher that when I'm in her classroom, I don't want to leave because it's so much fun and it's so awesome and I'm learning so much too. So it's no wonder that Sapna chose Mrs. Bishop as her honored teacher, most influential teacher. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Bishop and she'll talk a little bit more about the award as well.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting Sapna as a freshman when she was in my Spanish 2 class. She immediately stood out as an exemplary student with a gift for learning languages. When she approached me to ask if I thought she would be a good candidate for skipping Spanish 3 so that she could progress as far as possible in her high school career, my immediate reaction was absolutely. So I gave her the materials, and on her own, in her own time, she studied and covered all the material and passed the Spanish 3 final with flying colors. She went on to take Spanish 4 as a sophomore, Spanish 5 as a junior, excelling in all of her levels. During that time, I've been fortunate to have her as my peer tutor in SRT, where I have been able to watch her grow as a student and also as a Spanish teacher as she helps my students. During her junior year, she applied and was accepted to the IU Honors Program. And during this past summer, she went to Leon, Spain, and stayed there for 6 weeks, where even though she was out of her comfort zone, she continued with the same rigor as a student and passion for the Spanish language. When she returned, Sapna was recognized for her hard work by being selected as one of the recipients of the 2019 Indiana Outstanding High School Student of Spanish Award, which was given by the Indiana chapter of the American Association of Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese. I'd like to read what the person who nominated her said. He's the vice president of that organization. He said, "Sapna really deserves this recognition. Her outstanding academic record, exceptional interest for the Ibero-American culture, exemplary community service, remarkable overseas experience, and astonishing passion for Spanish were evident in her dossier. It is an honor for AATSP Indiana to have such a brilliant student from Carmel High School in our ceremony, where we recognize the best students in the state of Indiana." I couldn't agree more, and I'm so proud of this young lady for all she has achieved and all that she will continue to achieve as she continues to follow her passion for Spanish by currently using her skills to help Spanish-speaking high school students learn English in her spare time, and in the coming years when she plans to minor in Spanish in college. Felicitaciones, Sapna. Lo mereces.
For the next three presentations, I invite Mr. Bruce Wolf to the podium.
As always, Board and Administration, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to recognize some folks that have done some really great things. I would ask Coach Brian Hannon to come up because we're going to talk a little bit about tennis. First, last spring, our #1 doubles team in girls tennis won the doubles state championship, and I'm going to let Brian tell you just a little bit about those kids and then introduce them, please.
And our boys.
Yeah, let's do girls first.
Okay, our girls, state champs, undefeated, freshman, now sophomore, Lauren Littell and Leela Anthony. Just come on up.
Best thing about freshmen and sophomores, we have them back. So we appreciate that very much. And now to tell you a little bit about our boys tennis team, which this fall won the team state championship. Again, head coach Brian Hannon.
Okay, so this year, okay, girls. This year we won our 4th straight boys state championship. We also won the singles state championship. We won the doubles state championship. And I guess most of all, we also were team academic all-state. Our 10 guys averaged a 3.7 GPA. So we're not only good tennis players, we're smart kids as well. So let me introduce our first person, #1 singles player and 2-time state champ who's going Northwestern, Presley Thieneman. We have the state championship trophy here. We started a new tradition this year. We sort of passed it around like the Stanley Cup, so I think there's like 50 guys that slept with it one night, and so me as well. So that's that's why we have it here. We're trying to return it back to the school. Next we have Brock Fletcher. Eli Mercer. Good job, Brock. Jack Gentz. Senior John Zirkelbach. Senior Ethan Zhang. Shereen Malpetti. Senior Tyler Burnett. Then Jones McNamer, state doubles champ, and his partner Uday Lamada, who's not here tonight.
Picture. Oh, picture. Try and just bunch up there in the center there, troops. Okay, at the state finals in each sport, the Indiana High School Athletic Association selects a Mental Attitude Award winner. The candidates are nominated by their coach and principal, and the criteria includes athletic accomplishments, academics, and school and community service. It's generally considered to be the highest honor given to an individual in each sport by the IHSA. We are proud to recognize this year's IHSA Mental Attitude Award winner from girls soccer, senior Olivia Frey. Olivia is headed to Purdue University, which makes both of her Boilermaker athletic directors very happy. Congratulations.
Next, we have the Carmel Education Foundation Fall Grant Awards. Ms. Barbara Denquist.
Good evening. Thank you, School Board, for allowing us to come and recognize our CEF grants for the fall of 2019. I'm Barbara Danquist, and I'm part of the Carmel Education Foundation, and our mission is to enhance the learning of each child in every classroom in the Carmel Clay schools. And one way we do that is to offer grants to individual teachers, groups of teachers, or to a school. And tonight we are going to be announcing 30 or 29 different grants covering over 60 teachers in our district. So every child will get an opportunity to learn their best at where they are. So now I'm going to turn this over to our president, Melissa Vole-Smith, and she's going to be announcing each one of the grant writers, their co-teachers, and also the principal. We'll ask the teachers to come to the front and do a fist bump with Dr. Beardsford and myself, receive a certificate, come up here in the front, please, and wait till all the grant winners have been announced, and we'll then applaud each and every one of them for all the wonderful things that they wrote in their grant, and we'll look forward to see what they do in the future. So I'm turning it over now to Melissa.
Thank you, Barb. Our first grant recipient is Christine Amick. Orchard Park is the school. For the grant title is Ozobot Kit for Media Center. The principal is Rhonda Turner. Our next grant recipient is Beth Anderson from Mohawk Trails Elementary for functional play in the classroom. Principal, Jennifer Green. Catherine Blake from Forestdale School received a grant for multicultural books for Forestdale. And Sarah Inskeep is the principal there. The next is a group. The grant writer is Heather Bouye from Carmel High School for vocational independence through structured teaching, along with Kate Evans, Kira Hunt, Robert Iziri, Dana Lawrence, Luther Laughlin, Brooke Reeder, Thomas Oliver, Elizabeth Williams, Aaron Wolpert, and Tom Harmis is the principal. Kristen Kennedy from Smoky Row Elementary received the grant title for Amplifying Students' Voice. Along with Kristen is Megan Comparto, Stacy Girth, Paige Miller, April Pickett, and Lila J. is the principal. The next grant is a group for Kristen Kassler from Creekside Middle School, access to audiobooks, along with Joshua Lowe, and Tim Ferris is the principal. Then we have Megan Comparto from Smoky Row with STEM at Our Fingertips is that grant title. And along with Megan is Stacy Girth, April Pickett, Paige Miller, Kristen Kennedy, and Lila J. is the principal. Jocelyn DeLoyne has received a grant for reading, writing, intervention classroom materials. She is at Woodbrook, and Kelly Davis is the principal. Amanda Dillon from Prairie Trace Elementary, along with her group, received a grant. The grant title is Social Emotional Learning in Kindergarten. Along with Amanda is Lauren Alexander, Emily Adelman, Holly Van Treese, Chris Herring, and Jill Ship is the principal there. Dennis Dragish from Prairie Trace Elementary, their group received a grant for Wonder Books. Along with Denise is Amanda Dillon, Lauren Alexander, Holly Van Treese, Emily Adelman, and Jill Ship is the principal there. Ann Felligy from Town Meadow Elementary received, along with several others, received a grant for social emotional learning at Lending Library. And along with Ann is Linda Smith, Tina Gow, Lindsay Putman, Keita Speidel, Cynthia Agler, and Nikki Rash is the principal. Next, we have Sarah Furnkiss from Carmel Elementary for the grant of Dear Jennifer Cervello with love. And that is, let's see, Rebecca Nicholas is the assistant principal. Allie Lewis also assisted with this, and Megan Klinging-Smith is the principal there. Next, we have Samantha Gall at Prairie Trace Elementary for Hacking into Programming Basics with Mackenzie Cole. Jill Shipp is the principal. Allison Hargrove of Carmel High School won for the Swivel. Tom Harmis is the principal there. Laura Hunter for Orchard Park Elementary, along with Laura with several others for a grant title for Conscious Discipline Resources and Make and Take for Teachers. Dal Schweitzer is also on this grant award. Laura Boshi, Jamie Pisoris, and Rhonda Turner is the principal. Kristen Irwin from Creekside Middle School won a grant for a long walk into water, and Tim Ferris is the principal. Katie Kropp from Woodland Elementary is awarded a grant for Everyone is a Reader. Kelly Davis is the principal at Woodbrook. Allie Lewis from Carmel Elementary received the grant for SNAP, Caught Being a Helpful, along with Kimmy Fisher, Stephanie Borlick, Judy Schwartz, and Megan Klinging-Smith is the principal there. Jennifer Marble at Woodbrook Elementary received a second grade classroom library. Kelly Davis is the principal there. Rachel McCord of West Clay Elementary, along with her group, received a grant for Soft Start through Purposeful Play, along with Megan Cronkite, Melissa Geitch, Kayla Sparks, Alyssa Walker, Sandy Wuchek, Jennifer Shuhai is the principal.
Congratulations. Congratulations, thank you.
Jennifer Neal from Clay is awarded the ENL guided reading books. Todd Crosby is the principal there. Matt Moeller from Carmel Middle School received Science in Virtual Reality, along with Krista Harrison, Kaylee Chow, Courtney Julian, Deanna Pittman is the principal. Tanya Morris of Carmel Elementary and her group received the Mathalicious Real World Math Problems with Kim Leffers. Megan Klinging-Smith is the principal. Lisa Reddick of Creekside Middle School received a grant for Get Wired for Life. Tim Ferris is the principal. J.C. Snyder of College Wood Elementary received We Need Diverse Books, a grant for We Need Diverse Books. Kathy Olson is the principal there. Kristen Selm of Carmel Elementary received a grant for I Can Read, along with Amy Adams, Holly Adams, Victor Reno, Megan Klingensmith is the principal. Jessica Tenbrook from Forestdale Elementary received a grant for STEAM in Kindergarten, along with Becky White, Janine Daggett, Shelby Boyling, Devin Guthrie, Sarah Inskeep is the principal. The following is from Church, Hiddle, and Atrim grants. These are typically presented by them, and we are going to go ahead and move forward with handing those out in their place. And that will be, the first one is for Dave Wassman of Orchard Park Elementary, and his grant was for hooking reluctant readers with graphic novels. Rhonda Turner is the principal there. And finally, we have Michelle Hastings of Town Meadow Elementary. Is this? I'm sorry, is this a, I have a whole list of, is this a group? Apologize.
Yes, these are just the schools, so you just say district-wide.
Okay, so this is a district-wide, that's why I was slightly confused. They're listing all of them. So Michelle Hastings, and it was a student switch accessibility, along with Darla Aston, Tina Gow, Kelly Davis is the principal there. And that concludes our grants for this cycle.
Just one moment before we let Barb get away from here. She's getting tired of me doing this to her, but Barb's retiring, and she has been responsible, her and Stephanie, for awarding grants for 7-8 years in Carmel Clay schools, and thousands and thousands of kids have benefited from the generosity and the hard work of this foundation, and thousands of teachers as well has been inspired by these grants. So I couldn't let Barb get away at a board meeting without us at least doing 3 claps and a whoosh for Barb. So we'll just Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, this is your opportunity. We're going to take a pause, so if you want to go home and study. Next on the agenda, we have public comment, and we do have one speaker. The school board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to speak regarding corporation matters. However, the primary purpose of the meeting is to conduct corporation business, and public comment will be limited. When you come up, please state your name and address when you start your comments. Public comments shall be permitted only as indicated on the registration form, may not contain personal complaints against a student, employee, or school official. You have 3 minutes. The green light will come on when your time begins, a yellow light when you have 30 seconds left, and a red light when your time is up. Thank you in advance for your comments. The one speaker we have is Tricia Hackett.
Thank you. I'm Tricia Hackett. I live at 12432 Glendurgan Drive, Carmel 46032. Safety is of utmost importance. I felt it when I was a teacher long ago, as a member of this very school board, and I continue to feel it as a parent and a grandparent. I'm here tonight for two reasons. First, I am so very glad the safety referendum passed as specific initiatives to help CCS kids and staff help them to keep safer can now be implemented. Notice I said safer and not safe. As a community, we must remain caring, diligent, and engaged. This referendum is not a panacea for Carmel Clay schools. It's a launching point. But congratulations. But what about the kids and staff in neighboring Hamilton County districts? What about those kids and staff in Indy, in Anderson, in rural Boone County? Don't they deserve to be safer too? This approach to school safety and mental health via referenda that our state legislature passed on to us is not inclusive, nor is it sustainable for a safer Indiana. My hope, my plan, was to write our legislators and our school board after the November 5th vote and after our school board discussed and agreed upon updated CCS legislative priorities. I was confused watching the October 14th and October 28th school board meeting discussions concerning the 2020 CCS legislative statement and common interests. No specific legislative priorities were discussed during these school board meetings. No specific legislative priorities were shared with the public you represent, not verbally, not on the big screen, not in a handout. I heard nothing about safety being a priority, legislative or not. I look forward to, at some point, reading about the CCS legislative priorities or common interests on the district website. It's not been updated yet. I believe the community is interested in what you're thinking about this. The second reason I'm speaking this evening, then, is to promote a broader approach to school safety and youth mental health. The CCS School Board and the CCS superintendents have worked for several years now to develop mutually respectful and beneficial relationships with our state legislators. Now is the time to use these relationships. I'm here tonight to greatly encourage high-level, two-way conversation between our own superintendent and school board members and our state legislators to, one, reiterate that school safety and mental health truly are a top priority, two, demonstrate that school safety via individual district referenda is an inadequate and unsustainable model, one that's out of reach for many school districts, and three, to support legislation that truly addresses safer, healthier school environments throughout Indiana. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the agenda, we have consent. It includes personnel report, claims, payroll, approval of gift applications, workshop session minutes from October 14th, and regular session October 28th minutes. May I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? No, we'll now vote. All in favor of approving consent, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have a public hearing for additional appropriation for public hearing regarding education fund and the referendum fund. At this time, I need a motion to suspend the regular board meeting and open a public hearing regarding an additional appropriation of $2.7 million for the education fund and $800,000 for the referendum fund. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. The meeting is now suspended. Mr. McMichael, would you like to make any comments?
Just that this additional appropriation is to ultimately give the school board and the administration the authority to spend funds that we already have. So we're not, has nothing to do with raising more money or anything like that. We need appropriation in order to have the authority to spend the money that we have. Since our 2019 budget was developed about 18 months ago, a number of things have changed since that time. Our enrollment was increased beyond what was assumed. is really the primary change here, but, well, at least one major change. A second is we ultimately provided for salary increases that were increased beyond what we assumed when we built the budget because we received more money than what we had anticipated at that time. So, again, this is an opportunity for the public to make any comments that they would like, and absent that and approval by the board, we will send this information on to for state approval.
Thank you. At this time, we will offer members of the public an opportunity to make comments regarding these plans. Do we have anybody that would like to speak? Thank you. There are being no comments from members of the public. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. We will close the public hearing and move to the regular meeting. We have the first action item is considering the adoption of the additional appropriation resolution that we just had the public hearing for of $2.7 million for the education fund and $800,000 for the referendum fund. Mr. McMichael, do you have any additional comments you'd like to make regarding that?
Just that this process, this resolution will be, is the form basically that will be sent to the state, noting that the board has approved the additional appropriation, and we will ask for state approval of that as well.
Thank you. So may I have a motion to approve the appropriation?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions? Katie?
Not necessarily about the appropriations, but you mentioned that we had some growth. I know that we've gotten a couple questions about that. Could you let us know kind of how many and where that growth was?
Well, the how many part is, our calendar year budget actually encompasses 2 school years. And so in the first year, which would be 18-19, the enrollment was up about 100 students, again, in the context of 16,000 students, but it was about 100 students more than what our demographer had projected. And this most recent, this school year, we're up about 200 students. They're generally somewhat across the board, but our elementary enrollment is a little higher than what was projected. What we don't know is sometimes what can happen is when we're looking at trends, the enrollment may be up this year or last year. Question is, will that sustain itself, or will we decline next year? And which would indicate that some of the assumptions came a little early, and so of course it's too early to tell. We'll certainly keep an eye on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. So we'll now vote. All in favor of approving the additional appropriation, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Thank you. Motion carries. Next is another action item. It is a bid award for security and access upgrades at Woodbrook Elementary School. Again, the presenter is Mr. McMichael. Mr. McMichael, do you have anything to share with us?
Yes, thank you. This project essentially is moving the entrance for the building around to the north side of the building, which is essentially what had been the front of the building, and in the 90s it was moved what basically would be to the side of the building. But since that time, a lot of things have happened, and this is the only school that we have that does not have direct access when you come in. You're not coming in to the office area. This modification to that building will change that, so that this new entrance will bring outside visitors directly into the main office area. And so it's a security measure primarily.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the bid award for security and access upgrades at Woodbrook Elementary School?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Any discussion or questions for Mr. McMichael?
Yes.
Pam?
Sorry. Yes. Could you explain what the front entrance will look like when that is completed, and what the drive-in will look like, and how the entrance to the building will be situated?
The accesses will be essentially the same as it is now. You'll come in on the side street as opposed to directly off of 116th Street. And so you'll come around, still come in the same way, but you'll curve around to the north a bit, and then the entrance will be, as I said, it's about...
In between the trees and the building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's just
So the
before
drive
you-
will go on the other side of the trees?
When you say the other side,
Okay,
I think it's...
the south side of the trees.
Ron's back here waving, but I... He'll tell us, yep.
Please.
The drive does not change. It stays as it is, but there'll be sidewalk that will lead across the face of the building from approximately where the ramp is now. There'll be a sidewalk coming from that area straight across to, if you recall, where the playground, the kindergarten playground is. So that's about where the new entrance is, and so there'll be sidewalk access to that point to enter the building. So if you know the building layout about where their workroom is, that's where the entrance is.
So you're saying that there's going to be no car traffic in front of the building then?
That's correct.
So in order to drop a student off, they have to drop it off at the end and walk to the front entrance and bring them in?
Correct.
Okay.
Leila?
So on the exterior, is it going to eliminate the playground, or are we relocating the playground?
No, it's actually a little bit east of the playground. So
Okay.
you'll come up to the face of the playground more or less and then turn and go into the building.
And this bid, does it include all the exterior work that will be done?
Yes.
The landscaping?
Yes.
It's all encompassing?
Yep, it's comprehensive.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Roger. We'll now vote. All in favor of approving the bid award security and access upgrades at Woodbrook Elementary School, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have another action item, another bid award for interior renovation for Units A and B at Carmel High School. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. Units A and B are the counseling area, the student services and activities, and also the health center. So this project is renovating and reconfiguring that space. It also incorporates work at door 4 for security upgrades, which is related to parent and student access to the health center and the student services. And so this project will begin right away, really early December, and be finished by August of 2020.
Thank you, Roger. May I have a motion to approve the bid award for interior renovation for Units A and B at Carmel High School?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Second. Thank you. Are there any questions or discussions? Pam?
Yeah, can you explain how parents will have access to the building at this entrance? Will there be a buzzer that'll be allowing them to come in, like the front doors of all the elementaries, or will the students have to meet them in the entrance so the parents can't go in? How's that going to work?
It'll be similar to the front door. They'll have, buzz-in access, basically.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. All in favor of approving the bid award for interior renovations for Units A and B at Carmel High School, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. The motion carries. Next on the agenda is a school board meeting dates for the 2020 school board calendar. These dates have been circulated amongst the board and discussed at prior board meetings. So we will, if can I have a motion to approve school board meeting dates for 2020? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, any questions? Lynn?
I just want to thank my fellow members on the board for accommodating my teaching schedule in the fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Dr. Beresford and Colleen, for getting those dates scheduled for the least amount of conflicts that we can have and still be on our regular schedule. We will now vote to approve the 2020 school board meeting dates. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, thank you. Any opposed? No, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we will move to reports. The first report is Carmel Clay School Strategic Plan. Dr. Beresford.
Well, good evening. We've had a big meeting already. That was a lot of people cycling through here in 30 minutes, and really appreciate all of your patience. And I wanted to go through a little bit of something we started last summer when we went through the advance and talked about what's the next 3 years going to look like in Carmel Clay schools. And at that time, a lot of the members of the team reported out on some of the plans moving forward. And we took all that information, feedback from the board, and we've crafted what we call in the Carmel Clay Schools 3-year strategic plan. So I think I'll go through these, kind of one space at a time. I want to thank our team. This really was a team effort, and each one of the little sections of our district, people have specific responsibilities, but at the same time, you'll see some themes in here where more than one division, if you would call it that, are working with other divisions. So this isn't a segregated plan. It's a comprehensive plan with all of our whole team, with our goal always that all of our arrows are pointing in the same direction. So I'll start out with our 4 strategies. And our 4 strategies fall into student learning, student support, and employee growth and satisfaction, and enhanced operations. And I don't think we are cooking. Let me, excuse me. There we go. Wait for it. There it is. There we go. Now we'll have to do them slower. Student learning, student support, employee growth and satisfaction, enhanced operations. And so these are kind of the 4 general areas that we're going to address, and is going to be part of our strategic plan. First one being student learning. In student learning, we have 3 primary focuses. First one is to ensure that all students have rigorous and differentiated learning opportunities to meet their individual needs and have necessary skills and abilities to be college and or career ready. So that's always our mission, that our kids will have that instructional program that will meet them wherever they are and grow from there and get them to a position where they can find a future. The second piece is to ensure identity-safe environments to support student success. This summer we had several conversations along with the team over the last year and a half that I've been here about having equity and inclusion a priority at Carmel Clay Schools, and that notion of having identity-safe classrooms where no matter what differences students have, everyone is valued and feels safe. And then finally, we want to leverage technology to engage, enhance, and extend student learning. Once again, we'll reiterate that technology for technology's sake is not our mission. Our mission is to use technology as a high engagement teaching strategy, and to have that blend and amplify our learning in the most efficient way. So let's talk about what does that look like. And so these are strategic examples of what we're talking about when we go through these pieces. One of the key strategies in this piece is the structure of the school day. So we reported on that to you guys just a minute or so ago. We talked about incorporating a later start time for the high school and middle school, and following all that research on the circadian rhythm of adolescence. That would also include increasing the elementary school day, that 30-minute time span, and developing schedules that will incorporate social emotional learning, additional recess, inquiry, and STEM, a lot of things that we went through already. It also would implement that PLC, professional learning community time, for teachers by delaying school twice a month. So that's the structure of the school day and some of the detail of that. Personalized learning is a big area, and that covers a lot of different aspects of it. One part would be to strengthen the implementation of our multi-tiered system of supports, that MTSS piece. We're going to complete the literacy program evaluation, develop literacy curriculum maps, refocusing our math curriculum implementation, refining implementation of workshop model for literacy and math, expanding student-centered coaching practice, conducting multilingual program evaluation, that would be ELL, or formerly ELL. Before that it was ENL. And then conducting special education program evaluation, and then develop a K-12 college and career pathway. As you can tell, the CIA department is busy and have a lot going on, but all these are critical to keep going on our focus on being the best at getting better. We're always going to keep evaluating and go through our program, and we feel like these are the highest yield strategies that we can come up with. Talk a little bit about technology integration. Some examples of this might be continuing professional development on meaningful technology integration, as I spoke about before. Refining the use of Canvas with a focus on student learning communication. We continue to keep working with our staff on that and growing our staff's skill level with working with Canvas student management system and utilizing that and trying to get full power out of that program. Along with that, we want to increase student access. We do still have students in our district that may not have, connection at home. We may have students that don't have devices, so we want to continue to work on making sure every kid has access to technology that we can use for educational purposes. And then infrastructure system improvement. As we get more wired, we need more coverage, and that's always a top priority for our technology department. And then finally, when we talk about equity and inclusion, we're talking about maybe building knowledge with staff through professional development about how can we create environments grounded in equity and inclusion, using strength inventories for students and staff to learn about their strengths, identity strengths, revise policies to focus on equity and inclusion, conduct community outreach for community to participate in diversity exploration, empathy training, all things. We're just kind of putting our toe in the water in the start of this project, but we feel like it's an important one to best serve our kids and get that environment we need. And one thing that we did when we went through is two things. We wanted to have what would be our key measures. How are we going to determine progress in these areas? And in these areas, we're going to look at school improvement plans. Our current school improvement plans for this year already reflect a lot of the strategic plan that we have here. We're going to look at how the change in the school day implementation survey data. So in other words, if we do go forward with a recommendation to make those changes in the school day, once we're in that, we would be doing survey and implementing surveys and data on how that implementation is going and how the response to that is. Program evaluations are always data rich. Curriculum maps are tangible documents so we can evaluate our curriculum in that direction. And then we can actually use Canvas and we can audit how much it's used by teachers, in what ways is it used by teachers. It's a nice system in that we can pull reporting from that. And then we've talked about district and school climate audits. I don't know when we've done the last one. We've done climate audits before in the district, but that would be another place where we could pull some data, and particularly in regards to like the equity inclusion goal. Okay, I think I'll take One more piece here, maybe we can take a pause and we talk about this particular area. But one thing that I think it was Amy came up with the idea is we really ought to connect these to our guiding principles. So when we talk about this teaching and learning goal in student learning, what are our principles, our guiding principles that relate to this goal? And first of course, the students are at the center of every decision. This also supports the notion that a safe, non-threatening learning environment is essential for kids to do well. Students' academic, social, emotional, physical needs must be addressed. We're still working on that whole child and making sure that we're having some balance. And then students and employees excel when held to high personal standards and expectations, always looking at where are we now and where are we going and what is our standard going to be. Effective teaching and learning requires continuous improvement, and you can see that this goal is laced with a lot of school improvement. And then diverse opportunities benefit all students. And finally, parent and community involvement enhances student learning. So we'll take just a stop here. Do you have any questions or comments about student learning? I've got Dr. Dudley here, ready to help me, and we've got Christy Cloud in the audience over here as well.
Do we have any? Lynn, go ahead.
So thank you very much for giving an update on our strategic plan here. And I'm glad to hear that we are doing everything here for student learning, especially for personalized learning. I noticed that a couple of slides earlier, you talk about two audits, the Canvas implementation audit and district and school climate audit. So how are these two audits conducted? Are we doing it internally or through the Canvas automatically, or is it through outside when we had like the reaccreditation or something?
Sure. So one of the pieces conducting audits is the advanced ed tools that we do have through accreditation, and those tools can be used multiple times. We can use them every year, we can use them every 3 years, so we can use pieces from that that have a lot of survey data, that have the observational data within those tools. There are also some other companies out there that have climate audits. In the past, we were just talking about it this morning, where years ago we did a climate audit where we worked with a company and everybody had a specific code to give feedback based on the school that they were at. And then the Canvas audit is a way we can pull a lot of analytics from the Canvas tool itself. We also could go in and see how the classroom pages are set up, how are we using it for both student learning and communication, and that's an ongoing piece that we can look at. Right now we're working with our principals to say, where are we in our implementation, where we have our very early adopters that are using it for a variety of ways, and where we have some people that are using it at not maybe as high of a level, but how do we continue to move all of our teachers along so that we can use this tool for that student learning.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
Thank you. We'll move forward then. Our second area is under student support. We look at our big rocks, or our main focus is under student support. First one will be the overreaching goal of ensuring all of our students experience a safe and supportive environment that's not only safe but responsive to the needs of each student. Second major focus is to ensure all students' social emotional needs are met and supported, so that SEL learning. And the third one is to increase student access to mental health supports. Now, we've got quite a few strategies that you're pretty familiar with, because a lot of this was laced into our school safety referendum. School district safety planning, review, and improvement. What this is about is each school by law has to have a school safety plan, and then the district has a district-wide school safety plan. And we're going to continue working with this continuous improvement model, where we'll always be looking at our plans every year, and we'll also be evaluating it with our school supports, our school safety specialist team, and always we'll be continuing to look at those plans and see if there's places we can review and improve them in any way possible. Again, same kind of thing as the continuous staff training. So we do some staff training, through webinars, we do some live, but the idea that always staying on top and abreast of the best safety training available to make sure that our staff, knows what to do in an emergency, knows how to support our kids in different settings. This is also very important as, like this year, when we onboard staff, they go through safety training with Mr. Woodward and with DJ Chef, so that every employee that comes through will get that safety training, and it's consistent and brought to scale across the district. Having a full-time school resource officer in every building is something that we value, and our community now has proven they value as well. And so that implementation of that is going to be a major strategy. And I know we've said it before, and you might be getting tired of me saying it, but it's more than just having an armed guard in the building. It's about someone that's developing those relationships, and they have one single focus, and it is how to keep the students and the staff in that building safe at the highest level possible. Access control, we just did an appropriation for that, and nearly every school was touched this last year in working our secured vestibules. We're also putting in kiosks and working with a safe visitor program so that we can do background checks. That technology is always turning and improving and getting better and faster, and so we're going to continue to work on our access control all around our buildings. Part of that is brick and mortar, part of that is technology, but a lot of it is staff training and student training, really, on how do we keep ourselves ourselves safe and keep our buildings secure. And the whole notion with our Stop It app and all those things, a lot of that has to, all siphons back to access control. Student training will continue as always, and in different avenues in any area that we identify. So we've done student training, of course, with all the major safety drills and those types of training. But we also, like at the high school, did this Step Up to Stop Sexual Assault training, which has gone quite well and has been received real well by students and parents and our staff. And then finally, parent training. And our best example of that is our Safety Academy. And I think two of our board members have gone through that training. And how do we connect with our parents and make sure that we're all on the same page and supporting our kids and keeping them as safe as possible. So those are some of the strategic examples for safety. One thing I wanted to point through is what we're following is the Homeland Security Preparedness cycle. And what Homeland Security promotes in safety plan is you plan, you organize, you train, you exercise or drill, and then you evaluate. And that process is something that just goes on over and over again. So as you look through this list of things, always know that part of our major emphasis to keep continuously improving is that whole system, and it kind of carries over to other parts in the organization. But planning, organizing, training, exercising or drilling, and then evaluate it, and then see what improvements need to be made. And that kind of continuous cycle is what Homeland Security recommends, and it's the best that we have to work off of at this moment. So let's talk a little bit about mental health. And some of our key strategies is to work and make sure that we have very precise and good suicide prevention and response protocols. That has been updated recently, and we're still looking at what our programming is, are people trained. We've talked before, we had to have the whole staff trained in QPR, which is a suicide prevention training for staff to be able to identify kids that may be struggling or at risk, and then communicating that, those response protocols so that anytime there is a facts or any information that a student may be in a mental state where they may want to harm themselves, that we know exactly what to do, and everybody in the district is on the same page. Contracted mental health services, and that piece is coming through. We're working right now on the RFP for that, and we'll be posting that up as soon as it's cleared by legal, and we'll be starting on that process to do contracted service with the mental health providers, so that we'll have mental health therapists and other services available for our students. The whole mission of this is to knock down the barriers to kids getting the help they need by having some of those services available in the school. So parents can choose that as an option in order to get their kids the help they need. One part of this piece, too, is, we brought Stephanie Whiteside on board, is one of her major tracks is to how are we going to collect our mental health data so we can get a clear picture of what, what our students are going through. And some of that is, tracking, how many suicide assessments have we done. Other times we'll get information from our social workers, collect data that way. So we have to refine and make sure that we have our data collection on mental health is something that we have as a regular part of doing business so that we can make decisions based on that data gathered. QPR training I mentioned. And then social emotional learning alignment. And what that goal is about is bringing social emotional learning to scale. It was exciting to listen to a lot of the grants because several of them had to do with social emotional learning and different resources for social emotional learning. And there's a lot of great things going on in the district. But one of the jobs of the central office is to make sure that that's happening in every school in the corporation and bringing that to scale, that we have some consistency to make sure that all our kids are. I'm not saying that we are or we aren't, but we definitely need to be paying attention to make sure that we're bringing that to scale. And the other part of alignment is to make sure that we're using the most high yield experiences, that we're working at the highest quality possible with social emotional learning activities that are proven to be most effective. And then you heard Mr. Woodward talk a little bit about the countywide mental health response team. That's working with our neighbors around Hamilton County and on into Boone and around us, that if there's an emergency in any of our schools, that we can help our neighbors and our neighbors can help us if ever needed for an emergency. So what key measures will we use to measure improvement in this area? Monthly drill tracking, something that we do consistently here. Continuous staff training data. So when our staff does like the webinar training, that data is captured on who's completed those kinds of training. But also, just flat numbers. How many people are we training? What group are we missing? What kind of training is most efficient? There's the process of recruiting and placement of full-time SROs in the buildings, and that's something Mr. Woodward's working closely with Carmel Police on what's that process going to look like, and then tracking our completion on that. And that plan has been made flexible. So they've got goals for each year, but depending on what officers apply and how quickly people come aboard, on the police force, we could go a little faster and hopefully not slower. Full cycle of safety training. That's why I mentioned that cycle of safety training is that Homeland Security piece that I just mentioned. And then reunification training and drill. We completed our first very small drill with reunification last semester. And again, we'll be working through that process, taking what we learned from that small drill and planning more and maybe doing another larger drill in the future. Again, our contracted mental health services implementation. Once we identify a mental health provider, at that point, there will be an implementation plan on how to bring the therapist on board and where they'll be housed and how many schools each therapist will be responsible for, and building that to scale. So it'll have a lot of steps to it. And then back to school safety and mental health data collection. So our guiding principles: students are at the center of every decision. You're going to see a theme on that one. A safe, non-threatening learning environment is essential. Students' academic, social, emotional, physical needs must be addressed. Parent community involvement enhances student learning. I'll take a pause now to see if there's any questions or information you'd like to have regarding student support.
Katie.
Kind of like all-encompassing of this, what are your plans on, we passed the referendum and everything, how are your plans on educating our community on the things that you're doing? What are some ideas that you have with all of these steps?
Well, probably the most effective is just direct communication. So a lot of the, one of the questions now after you pass a referendum is, referendum passed, now what? what's going to happen next. So one of the most direct ones is we'll be putting out an in-the-loop newsletter that will address kind of where we are now, what the plan is moving forward. After that, it's just whatever something is when we maybe get a milestone or a benchmark, we reach a benchmark, it would be that time, to communicate with our community that, this is where we are at this point in time. And there's going to be in these processes a lot of those because, when we get our first 4 officers hired and where would we place them and where would they report to, and that kind of information needs to go out to the parents as well as, our school staff. So we're in the communication business really here at the central office. So that's, we'll be communicating through multiple means. Social media is always going to be part of it, but really direct communication with our families that we serve is probably the best way.
Thank you.
Pam?
Yes. I guess I never really thought about this before, but since we're putting so many more SROs in the buildings, how will those SROs be evaluated so that we know that they're following the protocols that are set every year? Will our current SROs be evaluating them, or will the Carmel Police Department be evaluating them? How will that happen?
Yeah, the role of the evaluation of the SROs is going to be on the Carmel Police Department. Like right now, our supervisor of the SRO unit is DJ Sheff, and he does all evaluations of the school resource officers. Now they do that with input from us because they want to know, how are we doing? How are we happy with the, the staff that we have? So that'll continue that piece of it. As far as the process goes for hiring the SROs, we have school people that are part of that interview committee because we all feel like it's important that we get the perfect fit for our school resource officers to find the right individuals that really have that skill set to be in that specialized unit. So we'll be involved, but the police are, these are Carmel police officers, so they would be in charge of evaluating the officers.
Okay. And my other question is, when we do the contracted mental health services, are we looking at possibly working with hospitals, people in the private sector, and how will they be used in the buildings during the day, after school, in the wellness center? How will that happen?
Yeah, the process is a competitive one. So the first step is to design, and we're really close to completing the request for proposals. And then we'll communicate out that request for proposals, and that is a pretty lengthy document that they would look at, and any mental health provider that feels qualified can do that, fill out that RFP and submit a proposal. Once that deadline comes and we've got our proposals from any that could be private, it could be a hospital, it could be a company that is a mental health provider. It's really wide open to anybody who wants to compete for that, that position. Once we get that done, then we'll do it typically we'll do like a paper evaluation and see if we need to narrow the field to, the main ones that we're interested in or who can fulfill the requirements of the RFP the best. And then once we've selected that group, we would have those companies come in and do a presentation for us, and we'll try to determine, which one would be the best fit for Carmel Clay Schools. And part of that will be what they send our way. Obviously, one of our big priorities is to have a mental health therapist available for kids at every building in the district. That doesn't necessarily mean there'll be a therapist in every school in the building, because it could be one therapist could handle the load at 2 elementaries or even 3. But it could be a situation where maybe 2 or 3 or 4 at the high school because it's a large high school. So that's the kind of thing that we'll be evaluating on what they present to us in their proposals. Another thing may not be therapists, but there's skills training, which is not necessarily a therapist, but they work with individual students that have specific issues and try to help them, work on personal skills that are impeding their progress to be, successful. So there's a lot of things like that, and there's other pieces of the pie that people will be able to to put into their proposals, and then we'll weigh that in a competitive market as to what would be the best fit for Carmel Clay Schools.
Part of that was, will somebody be available at the Wellness Center? Because it's not just the students who might need support, it might be staff as well.
Yeah, we currently have 2 mental health therapists at the Wellness Center for staff, and that's something that Roger and his group are monitoring to see if that needs to be expanded. And we're always looking to take care of our employees. We're kind of heading that way in the presentation here in a minute. But the referendum and the contracted mental health services is not applicable to the Wellness Center. That was really focused on just the school and reducing those barriers and giving parents another option, to get their kids the help they need.
Thank you, Dr. Beresford. One question or concern that had come up during the referendum, and it was voiced by several different people that have come to me, and I think to others as well, is the mental health offerings that we will have at the high school, or I guess at any of our schools. Parents are under the impression that this is going to be mandatory for all of the students, and I do think it's going to be very important as we roll this out to communicate exactly what the benefit is and how this works, and it's an opt-in. It's not something that we are having, that we identify a student and then we administer care. So I think the communication component is going to be extremely important as we move forward, especially in this area.
Yeah, we're seeing that. That even happened in legislation last year, where a lot of mental health bills were either eliminated or changed, because I think there's some confusion about what school counselors and school social workers do. They offer academic and social emotional support. They do not do therapy. And then there was also confusion about therapists, like if you have a school-based therapist, did the parents have to give permission for the kid to see that therapist? Well, absolutely. It's just like any private therapy setting. The parents absolutely have to give permission for that to happen. And the other confusing piece was people thought that Carmel Clay School was paying for the therapy of all the students that need it. Well, we could never afford that. It'd be a big referendum if you're going to do that. But the idea is to have the parents have another option of the school-based therapist or some of the other services that could be available, and they can choose those. And so, and it's all by choice, and it's all, the parents have to, it'll be the same process we've always used, where the school social worker or the school counselor will recommend to the parents for their student may need an evaluation because they may have some intense issues that they need, that they may need addressed by, a therapist or someone with that skill set. And then that parent will make the decision at that point in time. Do you want to use a school-based therapist, or would you like to go outside to a private therapist outside? And it's completely up to the parents, because they have to determine what's best for their child. So, and we'll keep reiterating that. It is a new concept, so it's not unusual for folks to be confused. Any other questions? All right, we're going into employee growth and satisfaction. So now we're moving from students to our teachers. Employee growth and satisfaction, we kind of broke it down to 3 major areas of focus. The first one, of course, is I think is probably the most important job of administration. That's to recruit, hire, develop, and retain a diverse and premier workforce. The key person and point of contact in schools is the classroom teacher. When they meet the student with their skills and their lesson plan, that's when the magic happens, and that's always got to be our focus. After that, this is one that doesn't get much talk about, but it's also vital, and that is we're continuously refining our employment policies, our processes, and our procedures. The devil's in the paperwork sometimes, but in order to serve our staff at the highest level we can, we have to make sure that we're paying attention to what our policies are, how we are going to work the processes and our procedures, so that we're efficient and we get our employees what they need. And then finally, we're really working and focusing on customer service, on personalizing our human resources support. And that's for the building administrators, because the Human Resources Department's mission is to assist the building administrators with finding and then bringing in recruiting and help them find the best qualified teachers that we can find and staff. And then the other piece of that is giving personalized human resources customer service to our employees, so they know that if they have any needs and need any kind of help, that we're there to help and we can communicate that clearly. So what are some examples of some strategies of that? First one's going to be working with our Teachers Association, and I'll reiterate, we have a wonderful relationship with our Teachers Association, and we'll be collaborating as we always do, and then in this next 3-year period, we will go through another bargaining session. So that's always going to be part of our, in the recruitment, bargaining in the contract is a big piece of the recruitment part of this too, as is compensation and fringe benefits. Ongoing market survey, and that's always paying attention to the surrounding districts around us in the state, and so we remain competitive in all sides of human resources, and so we can be competitive with our neighbors. Expanded use of applicant tracking system, and we use a pretty robust system for applications to track what groups are interviewing. It's a system that can be used for exit interviews. There's just a lot of different components and we're expanding the use of that applicant tracking system. Really, every month we're picking and starting to put new aspects of it in there. So we'll be using that. One thing that we've identified is that a lot of times our staff may not know all the different things that we have at Carmel Clay Schools, and how can we promotional and market our district so that we'll attract top candidates. And we do have a robust wellness program, and we have a very competitive salary, and we have different incentives for our non-certified staff. So it's kind of they're certified, non-certified. So we want to work on our marketing. Part of that is targeted job fair recruitment. We have Shelley out here, and she has gone to all kinds of different job fairs that I don't think that Carmel Clay may have ever attended, in searching for non-certified staff, and really kind of work in every aspect we can find in order to find bus drivers and custodians, and as well as teachers and all the targeted, and just being by that target, trying to find where we can find these employees. And then expanding the onboarding process, and so we've moved to some group onboarding, and we're able to do more, I think, significant onboarding and getting our folks off to a good start and having a better understanding of how the district works than ever before, and we'll keep working that. So we talk about retention and development staff. One of those things is for non-certified staff, we want to work with some of our supervisors on performance evaluation training. So on the non-certified side is we want to make sure that we're evaluating staff every year, and that we're getting good communication and looking at strengths and weaknesses, and what kind of things can we do to strengthen our weaknesses and make our strengths even stronger. On the certified side of that, we're looking at specialized professional development. You've heard a little bit about our talent development evaluation system, moving from that big rubric to staff actually making goals, and we're kind of excited about how that's going so far with the pilot, and whether that'll be expanded, and we'll keep working with our CTA on that. Specialized professional development is just it's more specific instead of the general. So in other words, you identify staff members, either certified or non-certified, that have a specific job or a task. Instead of going with a generic catch-all, we'd go, well, let's talk specifically about one area in particular. For refinement of our compliance training process, we've been worked on that this year, where we're doing webinars, and we're actually still working with legislators to try to reduce the number of required trainings from every year right at the start of the school year, which is the busiest time, to maybe giving that a different look. And then, as we talked about equity and inclusion on the student side, we also want to have that same presence, that same goal in our identity-safe workplace. So we talked about identity-safe classrooms. We want to talk about identity-safe workplaces so that we're sensitive to those around us. One other thing we noted was that sometimes I don't even know that all of our employees know the benefits that we have at the Wellness Center, because people tend to think of the Wellness Center as just the med check kind of idea, but there's so much more than that robustly going through. And how can we communicate that better and keep promoting those things? And then enhanced customer service, talked about that. And then how do we measure that? Well, I told you that was a robust system, that applicant tracking. We can pull a lot of reports and a lot of information out of that. Part of that system, you can do an exit interview, electronic exit interview, with anyone who leaves our corporation, whether that's for resignation, retirement, whatever. They can fill out an exit interview so we can gather data and keep on top of why people leave and information we can get that way. Customer service data collection comes down to surveying employees and having pathways for employees to give us feedback. Training system data, I talked a little bit about that Safe Schools webinar training that we do. That system also has a good report writing function where we can pull from that and see who's done what training, and we could even look, I think, into how they score on their quizzes, and those. And here we go back to when I talked about the policies and procedures. Is we have to consistently do a spiral review of our policies, processes, and procedures. How we handle different situations, and what language are we using? Is there things that we need to improve on? What's the most efficient way to serve our employee base? And our guiding principles: students are the center of every decision. Students and employees excel when they're held to high personal standards and expectations. High-quality employees are vital to the success of our organization. Effective teaching and learning requires continuous improvement. That's that development piece. Open and transparent communication maintains stakeholder trust. And that's probably one of the premier jobs of this goal, is that we have to communicate with our people effectively and efficiently. And then fiscal responsibility is fundamental to achieving our vision. We always have to keep an eye on the bottom line. And these two goals fit very closely, the last two, because the human resources side has to work hand in hand with our financial side, and that's a union that we can't break. They have to be very tight, close, and communicate very well. So that concludes our chunk on the employee growth and satisfaction. Do you have any questions or comments?
Katie?
Can you give us some examples of customer service?
Mm-hmm. Shelley, you want to give it an opportunity?
We haven't always met.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shelley, can you come up here? And we have to have you on the microphone. I apologize. Yes, ma'am.
We have not always been meeting face-to-face with people, employees who want to take a leave. So that's a focus that we've had. And if you reach out to our office, rather than just sending you an email with the steps, we have a meeting with you and we talk about the leave and what it's going to look like, and try to just kind of put the human back in human resources, meet with people face-to-face, and then try to follow up with them.
You might talk a little bit about the onboarding, the group onboarding sessions that you have.
For onboarding, we used to onboard everybody individually, and we found that it would be more effective and we could do more if we did a group onboarding. So every Thursday, we have onboarding, and we take each employee through their benefit package, and we actually put them on computers. We have them go ahead and log in, rather than them just getting like a packet of information and then going to the building and trying to figure out how to set up their email, how to go in and set up their eSuite account. We do that all together in an onboarding session, and then we just added the piece of having them stay after the onboarding session and complete their requirements through Safe Schools or the webinars that we talked about for compliance. So they do that all here now in our building before we send them to the buildings to start work.
Yes, I would. I'll call you back here in a minute. Okay. The group onboardings have a lot of benefits. Part of it is sometimes people will ask questions and other people benefit from the questions that one person asked that they didn't think of asking themselves, and making sure they have those skills and have those things set up when they walk in makes their start up with our organization a lot better. So, very good. Other questions or comments?
I don't have questions, but I have a comment about our accomplishment here in with our HR. We recently hired a permanent assistant principal for HR and student service. So I think that's a big accomplishment to enhance our customer service and interactions with our employees and staff.
Yeah, we're trying to decide whether to put that on the list or not, because we already did it and it's accomplished. But we are pretty excited about bringing Tom on board, and he's going to be a real asset, we think, to our organization. So pretty excited about that. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. Are we in the position of actively recruiting veterans and trying to find positions for them? Do we have a way to do that? I mean, is there an organization or some place that you can go to help them get jobs?
There probably is, and we could research that. That's not a group that we have targeted right now to try to reach out to. Certainly, we're open to that and can do that. It's new for us in this venue to be going to, I would say, non-traditional college teaching job fairs. And I've been attending job fairs that are targeted more toward the classified or the hourly side of our employees. And certainly some veterans have been attending those that I have met and talked with. That has not been its own focus, but certainly something we can look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. What's really important about this is the old days where you just posted it and you had lots of applicants are over. So both on the non-certified and the certified side, we have to go out and get in the competitive business of finding and bringing those talented individuals into our organization. So, other questions? Okay, we're almost to the finish line. So, but this is Roger's favorite part. So we'll try to jazz it up. Enhanced operations, and we have three big focuses there. One is to increase the efficiency and refinement of our daily operations. That's always the goal. We're always going to try to make our daily operations as smooth and efficient and save as much money, frankly, as we can. Continuous improvement, design, construction, maintenance of all CCS facilities. That includes like our two big projects on the elementary schools, but it's important to have ongoing planning, and Carmel Clay's had a culture and history of keeping our buildings, our facilities up to a top-notch standard by continuously redoing repairs, updating, refinement. And then one thing that we keep growing in the area of, and so I made it a bullet because it's been pretty exciting, it's just the expansion of environmentally friendly initiatives. So those are our three big areas of focus in our enhanced operations. So here's an example from finance. Again, we're back to working with our teachers in collaboration and bargaining. That's why you'll see a lot of overlap in between some of our different divisions. The implementation of gap accounting, we've talked about accrual accounting, and that was a mandate from the state for, what was it, Roger, approximately 9 or 11 school districts? 8 or 9. Yeah. And so, that mandate's caused us to look into that. We're still interested in having further talks with legislators about that, but it's definitely a requirement at this point in time. Part of that is when, again, here we have the referendum passed. Now what? Well, that goes to operations as well. So the involvement of our operations in the school safety referendum, which came down to estimating costs and putting together our communication package for the referendum. And now that we've passed it, we have to the establishment of the Referendum Fund. And as we discussed in the referendum, our maximum is $5 million a year, but for the first year, we don't think we'll need to collect that much money. So then, that's in this area's got to determine what's that going to look like and follow the procedures to make that happen and establish that fund. Refinement of internal controls. For instance, an example of that would be right now, to continue to work on a handbook for ECA funds, extracurricular activity funds. So always looking at ways that we can have redundancy and keep continuously checking our accounts and making sure that we're keeping everything accurate in the right columns. Looking at automated time and attendance systems to be more efficient and also reduce paper. And then long-range planning. As you could guess, with continuously wanting to make sure that our facilities are kept up to a high level and that our mechanicals are kept up to a high level, some of these projects to renovate and to update are expensive, and that comes over long-range planning because we have to protect the tax rate, so we don't have, we don't want the tax rate to rise. So we have to, Roger and his team have to calculate that, and as bonds roll off, where's the capacity to pay for some of the improvements, just like the ones that you approved today, to change the entryway to Woodbrook or to do those projects at the high school, and that schedule has to be, set up, and so we always are tracking what our margins are and what we can accomplish to keep Carmel Clay Schools facilities and our programming in top flight condition. So some examples. Just mentioned that one. Part of that project will also be furnishings and technology for the new elementary school projects. Secured vestibule projects that we've talked about today, and even appropriated another one for coming up this summer. The explosive recovery, which is coming to an end, and what an amazing job that was. But that, again, is part of the strategy and some of the things we have to do. Just mentioned that. And then more strategies in transportation. Can anybody guess what the first one is? Driver recruitment and training. It's going to be an ongoing battle, and there will be, if we get fully staffed on bus drivers, there will be lunches bought for all involved with that. So. With opening the 2 schools, we're going to have a redistricting that'll go on. That's going to affect transportation because they'll have new lines to draw, new routes to make, and the routers are going to be pretty busy. With the possible school day changes, that may affect transportation as well. So they'll have to do some adjustments based on that. And then, of course, there's always the long-term bus fleet and management that goes on. Pretty consistently, and the lifespan of the buses, and keeping them, the upkeep as high as we can, and until we change over to a new bus. And finally, the last one is strategic examples and some of our environmental friendlies. We continue to expand our propane bus fleet, which is much more environmentally friendly than our diesel buses. We have an electric bus pilot going on, so I don't think the bus has arrived yet. Do you know when it's coming, Roger? No, it should be there. Yeah, because that's kind of exciting to see where that technology is going to go. And to remind you, we had a grant to pay for that. It's very expensive, but we were lucky to get a grant for that. Use of silverware, reducing that plastic, and that's going well. I'm not sure how widespread we really promote it, but we do a lot of energy management in the district, and I have an energy manager. And just simple examples like replacing burned out bulbs with LED lighting can save a ton of money, reduce heat, and it's much more environmentally friendly. And then we've got all kinds of green team school-based pilots going on. I was just made aware of yesterday, I think, that there's a composting project going on at the high school, and that's to reduce greenhouse gases, and through that, and then of course our gardens and recycling, that sort of thing. So how do we measure it? Continuous monitoring of short and long-term projects. Roger's department does a great job at keeping track of all the many projects going on. Plus, they always have to be nimble and quick because things break or fail or break down, and we have to be able to respond to those quickly. We do our financial data review every board meeting, and keep that out loud and transparent. Part of the work is monitoring the market, and when we get into bonds or when we're looking at savings and doing analysis of what, those, and sometimes those are very accurate and sometimes they can get a little bit off. We also look at employee data and trends, and that has to do with healthcare, has to do with trends like when we have our summer hiring starts usually around spring break and ends, in September sometimes. Looking at what employees are retiring or resigning, and are we bringing in younger employees that aren't quite as expensive, or are we hiring people with a lot of experience that are more expensive, and find that talent management and those types of things as well. Guiding principles: students are center of every decision. Safe, non-threatening environment is essential. High-quality employees, effective teaching, open, transparent communications, fiscal responsibility. So questions?
Pam?
Yes, it's really not a question, but when we're doing our routing or routing of our buses, and I know we've tried to do this in the past, but I just want to make sure that we continue to be mindful of how students get on the bus, and make sure that the students are, as much as possible, able to get on the door side of the bus, because as I've brought up to the school system before, I have a granddaughter who gets on 106th Street, and very often cars go right by the bus even when the arm's out. So that just really is troubling. So I just want to make sure that, I know this district has been very careful about making sure students are safe and they don't have to cross the street, but there are areas that they do have to do that.
Yeah, and that's a priority with the routing department. Other questions?
Other questions? Leila?
Will this be on the website? And I'm very much interested in all of the different parts of the strategic plan, the projects per se. I would love to see that listed on our website with progress reports or little, I know at one point we had red, yellow, green. It doesn't necessarily have to be color-coded, but I would like to see progress, so the community, our students, everybody has an idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and the direction that we're going.
Yep, we do a lot, so we'll have to look at that. Part of the piece of this, what we're doing is, want to report this to you, and then take any feedback we receive from you, and then we want to put it together in more. For some reason, people weren't really impressed with my black and white, PowerPoint presentation, but I thought it was very clear. But we'll probably making something publishable to be able to communicate our strategic plan that way. I understand the progress piece of that. We'll just have to investigate that and think of what would be a way we could do that efficiently, and monitor it and make sure it's up to date and continuously. So we'll discuss that with the team and see if there's an efficient way to do that. It's a good idea.
Just to kind of piggyback off of that, like there's so many things just in things that we want to be the best at getting better that you've mentioned that we're already doing really great at. And I think just the communication piece of continuing to educate our community of, the great things. And, Courtney does a great job about sharing on social media, but, the electronic bus and the training things and the job fairs and all that, like all of that is great information to utilize our brand new website and to share all those different things too as we continue to, to be the best.
Yeah, and it's exciting. The website's pretty exciting. I mean, I could see us doing things with video or infographics and that sort of thing as well.
Well, thank you, and those were the last two questions were my kind of questions. What are our next steps? And so you threw a lot of information at us, which was great to hear and get all down. And I think we need to remember that this is the Carmel Clay School strategic plan, not the board plan. So this is district-wide, and just a roadmap for the next 3 years. So we look forward to hearing back from you, and thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank the board for allowing us to build a plan. This is not a plan that we're going to make a poster of and put on the wall. This is a living, breathing document, and it's going to be a way for us to keep our sights set on our mission, and it's going to be a living, breathing document that we will work hard at to make sure that we're hitting on all cylinders and giving our kids and our families the best educational experience that we can muster. So I appreciate you giving us that opportunity to build this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the monthly student data report. Dr. Dudley.
Thank you. So this evening, I have a quick report on some more student data. You can remember 2 months ago I brought student data on iLearn, and I know you're familiar. We also use a very robust tool called Map Skills. It's put out by NWEA, and I wanted to share some data over the last couple of years of how we're doing and what that measures for us. So as you may recall, Map Skills is an interim assessment that we give in the fall and winter of each year to all of our students in kindergarten through 8th grade. We also use it with our students in high school for students that might be in a remediation class, students that might have an IEP, but we don't use it with all of our students in the high school, but we do use it with some of our students in the high school. The data that I'm going to talk about here is reflective of our students kindergarten through 8th grade because it's all of our students, and so you'll see that data. So an interim assessment, what it does, what it measures, is what our students are ready to learn. And as you may recall from when we first introduced this, it is a computer adaptive assessment, similar to the new iLearn is computer adaptive. But what's different between Map Skills and iLearn is Map Skills goes above grade level, on grade level, and below grade level. And as you'll recall, iLearn is only at grade level. But it does start with, is the first time the student takes the test, it starts at the grade level. And then from there, it will start the questions at their individual RIT level after they take the test one time. And the test calibrates up or down based on how the student does, and then that gives you that final RIT score. So it will measure how your students are doing at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level. And as I said, it's measuring what students are ready to learn. And so the Map Skills gives you a RIT score, and what this RIT score is a standardized score that it's an equal interval score. That means that you can use it to compare from year to year or from fall to winter. You can average it. It's all 1 point apart. Sometimes standard scores, you cannot take them and average them together, but a RIT score you can, and it's measuring exactly what is that student ready to learn regardless of their performance. So how are we doing? So this first graph here shows us how we're doing in both achievement and growth. And so overall in the district, looking at our scores, and we're looking at scores from last winter. As I said, we do it in fall and winter. And this is looking at our data from when we're comparing that growth. We're looking from winter to winter, so we're looking at a whole year of growth. And so as we look at our growth of how we're doing and the achievement, you can see that our district median of achievement is at the 79th percentile, and that's well above the mean of the 50th percentile. And our growth, our district median growth, is at the 53rd percentile, and that's right around average, where they look at the 50th percentile as average. So our achievement is well above the mean, and our growth is just right there about average in both reading and also in math. The reading is in the blue and the math is in the yellow there in this graphic. So what does that mean when you're really looking at your different quartiles? And as you may recall from your statistics class, you have quartiles, which are broken into 4. And when you look at national norms, you would have 25% of students in the top quartile, 50% in the middle two quartiles, and 25% in the lowest quartiles. So how are our students compared to the national? So not surprisingly, our students in the district overall quartile, we have the most students in that top quartile at 61%. And then we have 34% of our students in the two middle quartiles and 5% of our students in the bottom quartile. And then as that's broken out in reading and math, you can see 59% and 62% in that top quartile in both reading and in math. So as you can see, our students are much higher achieving, and that's not a surprise as we are a high-performing school district. So how are those students in those different quartiles, how is their growth? Because the graph I just showed you was showing how their achievement was. Now, how are those students doing in their specific growth? And as you can see, their growth is about average in all of our quartiles. There's some differences, but they're all very close to average. In that lowest quartile in both reading and math, they're at the 53rd percentile, and the middle two quartiles at the 55th and the 53rd, and then the top quartile, the 52nd and the 53rd. So their growth is about average, even though their achievement is higher. So another question that MAP skills helps us to determine is their prediction of readiness for college and career readiness, and also their proficiency on state tests. The way that they predict this is they do linking studies, and they look at student data all through Indiana, and they did a linking study based on how students did on MAP skills as compared to how they did on iStep. Once they get enough data, they will also do a new linking study on iLearn to be able to predict how they'll do on iLearn. However, the linking study is still fairly accurate because, as you'll recall, between iStep and iLearn, the standards did not change. iLearn is still testing the same standards that iStep did. So that linking study is still fairly accurate, but they will do an updated one once they have enough data in Indiana. And then they also do a linking study of how the students achieve on MAP skills as compared to how they achieve on ACT and SAT. And those linking studies are still very relevant. So they look at that data and then they predict how our students will do. And so as we're looking at are they proficient and are they college ready in both ELA and math both, the prediction is that the 79% of students will be proficient on the state assessments and 59% will be proficient on the SAT or ACT once they take it. And again, this is looking at students from second grade through 8th grade. So there's still a lot of learning to go before they take the ACT and the SAT in high school. So don't be alarmed by that only 59%, because there's still lots of learning that will happen in those years. This data is actually looking at are they proficient based on our scores last year on iLearn, and our proficiency is right on target as far as how we were proficient with iLearn as well. So this is just 1 year of data to keep in mind, but it does give you a piece of looking at that prediction, and then where we can use that in the schools, where teachers can use that to say, what are the areas that we need to really shore up so that they can be successful, not only on the state assessments, but in their learning overall. So this is another piece that's looking at how are our students, their proficiency as far as the subject and the grade level, from second grade all the way through 8th grade. And as you know, we do not give a state assessment in second grade. However, they're looking at if the students, once they get into 3rd grade, how would they be doing? So that's why it is reporting from second grade through 8th grade. And as you can see, the marks in the middle, the darker marks of the green and the gold, those are the overall percentages that are from all of Indiana students. And then the bars are how the predictions of how Carmel Clay students will do. So you can see we are outperforming other school districts in both math and in reading in that prediction with their linking study. So another question is our growth strong over time? So looking over the past 3 years, how are we doing on growth? And as you can see, our growth over time is about average, where we started off from the 16-17 year, our growth was a bit above average, and we've moved down to closer to the average range at the 50th percentile. So the 3-year median of our growth over time is at the 58th percentile, which is just a little bit above average on that growth. And we would like to see not only our achievement high, but also our growth high. And so that's a goal that we're continuing to work on to make sure that all of our students are growing. And then this is one that is looking at how are we compared to the national average as far as their achievement. And as you can see, and looking at the individual grade levels, our achievement in reading and both math. So math, we have their highest overall achievement, which range from the 70th percentile in kindergarten to the 84th percentile in 8th grade. And then reading, the lowest achievement overall range from the 73rd percentile in kindergarten to the 80th percentile in 8th grade. So it's above the national average. But you can see how it breaks down based on the individual grade levels and then how that compares to the district achievement as well. And this is the same question, is how are we doing as far as growth? And you can see we had the highest average growth in both subjects in 1st grade and below average growth in 2nd grade, which is kind of interesting. They jump way up from kindergarten to 1st grade, and then from 1st to 2nd grade, that growth slows down quite a bit. We would like, though, to see that growth to be above average in all of those grade levels. So that's an area that we'll continue to look at. But what is happening between 1st and 2nd grade where that growth is going down? You can see in both math and in reading. And then asking the question of how do our boys and our girls compare in both achievement and growth. You can see that it's very similar. Looking at all of our students in kindergarten through 8th grade, their achievement is exactly the same for both males and females, and their growth is just 1 percentile difference in both males and females. And this is looking at all of our students in both math and in reading. So breaking that down a little bit more by subject and by grade span, you can see that there's no significant difference between girls and boys in both the grade span and also in the subjects. It's very similar. There's a little bit of a difference in the growth percentiles in both the reading and in the math in K-5, where the girls are growing a little bit faster in reading and the boys are just a smidge up in the math. But then in 6th through 8th grade, you can see the girls are growing a bit more in the reading, and the math is just right about even. So that there's not a significant difference in those percentiles. So then looking at both the ethnicity and gender by ethnic groups. So first looking at how are our students across with ethnicity groups with the our students in both achievement and growth. And you can see we have our lowest both achievement and growth are our African American students as well as our Hispanic students. We're right around average in growth for all of them, but that achievement is lower than our other groups. And that is very similar to the iLearn data that I shared with you, and that's an area that we need to continue to improve upon and make sure that we are putting pieces in place so that we close that achievement gap for all of our groups. And drilling down a little bit more, looking at our different ethnic groups with as it is compared to gender, and you can see some of our lowest areas in growth are our female African American students in the areas of math. And then also looking at our other areas where we see the biggest difference in reading in both our female, between our female and male Hispanic students in reading. And so those are all areas that we want to see We don't want to see big differences between females and males, and we also do not want to see big differences between all of our ethnic groups. We want to see all of them having high achievement as well as high growth. So this data just gives you a glimpse of looking at some data over time and looking at both achievement and growth for our students in kindergarten through 8th grade. So it gives us another measure as we continue to use this to really determine what are the needs of our students and what are they ready to learn, and how can we use this interim assessment along with our iLearn assessment, along with our formative assessment that we use each and every day to develop those lesson plans and to make sure that we're making sure each of our students are getting that just right instructional match all day long, getting the instruction that they need for them to continue to grow and learn. So with that, what questions might you have?
Well, thank you, Dr. Dudley. Questions? Katie?
Well, first I want to say thank you. We as a board tasked Dr. Beresford that one of the things that we really wanted to see is that we wanted to see how our schools are doing. We wanted to see the good, and we wanted to see how we can do better. And so I really appreciate you taking this on and working with your teams to present us this information so that we, with that knowledge, can become a better board with the things that we want and then a better district. And I love how this plays right into the discussion we had earlier about the things that we want to use in the data points and all that. And so it's a great example of using that information in order to bridge these gaps and everything. So thank you to both of you.
I am sure my fellow board members and I am very concerned about our African American and Hispanic population and these numbers that we're seeing. What are we currently doing? And now that we have this data, what can we do to improve? Because this disparity is concerning.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And so looking at all of the things that Dr. Beresford presented in our strategic plan, the one piece is that equity and inclusion, making sure that we're moving from having those identity-safe classrooms, making sure that we're moving from an exclusive community to an inclusive community, and looking at everyone's differences and looking those as strengths that make us all better. And so how do we make sure that we know our students well, and that we're providing that inclusive culture within the classroom as a first step? Another piece of that is continuing with our multi-tiered systems of support. And as we look at our multi-tiered systems of support, that's looking at both the academic as well as the social, emotional, and the behavioral pieces of what our students need, and knowing each individual student, knowing what are their academic needs, what are their social, emotional needs, and what are their behavioral needs, and continuing to refine that implementation so that we're making sure we know exactly what our students need so that we can move them forward to close those gaps. Some of the other pieces that we will be focusing on is you saw Dr. Beresford mentioned it, is looking at a program evaluation for our multilingual learners. And as Dr. Beresford mentioned, it was our English language learners, but the terminology has changed because they're learning multiple languages, not just English, but multiple languages. So looking at our multilingual learners and what are the needs and what is our service delivery models, how are we best meeting the needs of our students, because as our population increases, and that's going to be an area that we'll bring next month to you, our different language learners, and as that increases, how do we better serve them? What are those service delivery models? And another piece of that, too, is in our special ed population and looking at our service delivery models of our special needs students. How are we best meeting their needs? And do we need to look to update some of that, those models? And so those are all pieces that we're looking at each and every day. Another piece, too, that ties right into that is that workshop model of making sure that we have the structures in place in both math and literacy to be able to differentiate, to be able to make sure that we have time to be doing small group instruction, to be doing one-on-one instruction, to have conferences with our students, to know that individual level of where they're at and to move them forward. Because we're looking at not only our students, our low-achieving students, but we want to continue to move our average achieving students and our high-achieving students forward as well. And so we want everybody moving along. And we do want to close that achievement gap. And so those are all areas that we're focusing on to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students, because you're right, our data is very clear that we have quite an achievement gap.
So just to piggyback on that, this data here is a year's worth of growth. What are we doing short-term measures to identify if we are making some improvement?
Mm-hmm. Right. So one of the pieces, as I said, we give map growth in both the fall and then also in the winter, and that's considered an interim assessment. So we're looking at that data very closely. The data I put in front of you today, I wanted to make sure we had a whole year, but we're looking at that. We're also looking at that formative assessment in the classroom. So those assessments that the teachers use to drive their instruction each and every day, and we're making sure that we have pieces in place that we want to move all of our students forward, and when they don't, then what do we need to do? Is it that reteaching? Is that a pre-teaching? Teaching it in a different way? But that's the day in and day out, the work that our teachers do each day in the classroom.
When we use that term personalized learning, that's what Amy's did a great job of explaining all the different pieces that includes, because you're really meeting a student wherever they are and working towards that growth from that point to the next point. And so that's when we're looking at not only achievement, but we're also looking at growth. They've just done a wonderful job of putting pieces in place. Now we just have to keep working the process.
Pam?
So because of this disparity, are we also looking at curriculum and trying to find out whether or not the curriculum we have in place is meeting the needs of the students that we have, or is there a problem with the current curriculum and do we need to update it or change it?
So that's a piece that we continuously look at whenever we do our program evaluation, and then we do our materials adoption and our curriculum writing. And one of the pieces, as you'll find in when Ann comes in January, where she has our recommendations from our literacy program evaluation, one of the pieces that we did look at very clearly is that the curriculum and the materials that we're using, is it showing both the windows to the world, but then also a mirror that reflects back on what we're like. And what we found is a lot of the materials we use in literacy is written by white males, and that is not reflective of our population. So how are we making sure that we're getting more materials that are more reflective, so that it's a mirror back, it's not just a window, but then a mirror back on us. And so that is an area that, yes, we do look at the curriculum and then the materials as well that we're using.
Are both of these populations growing?
Our African American and Hispanic population?
Yes. So do we know percentages of numbers of students that we have in those particular areas of total students?
We do. I don't have that right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yes, we have that information. Over the years, we have grown. Not extensively, but our population does continue to grow in both areas.
Okay. And I noticed the growth on the Caucasian is also low. I mean, it's not that much higher than...
It's right at the average, yes, for both the males and the females. It's right there at the average part. And then the other group, so looking at our other populations that have very small numbers as well, as you can see, is right there, especially with the females in the growth.
Mm-hmm. And to confirm, teachers have access to this data for their individual students. Is that not necessarily this broad, but for their classrooms?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the teachers they're very robust, the learning continuum, and then the reports that they look at for each individual student. And so they'll use our MAP skills to work with the students to write individual goals. And then the learning continuum takes all of the standards and it shows what the students are ready to learn next. And then it also groups students together of what they're ready to learn next. So it is very robust tools that teachers have access to, and we continue to provide that professional development on how to use it the very best.
Okay. That's what I thought. I know that one time when I was meeting with a teacher about my child, she was able to like get in there and say, this is the data that shows what they're struggling with and everything. And I really appreciated that they were able to kind of have access to that information. And to go along with the personalized learning, that they know what the needs of the students, not only what they see every day, but how they're performing on these. So, thank you.
You know, sometimes folks talk about we're all about the numbers, and you're always talking about the numbers. That's because the numbers represent individual kids, and so we're always going to be looking at the numbers, and we're always going to be paying attention because every one of those numbers is a kid.
Yeah, I have one more question. Because iLearn is a new test, and it isn't as beneficial as the state thought it was going to be. Is there any reason we don't map the students in the spring as well so that we can kind of compare what they do on MAP to the iLearn scores?
Sure. And the one reason we don't do that is because we have to weigh the time it takes for giving the assessment, and we're giving iLearn in the spring, and we need to balance it. But we've had some teachers that have asked, can we give it also in the spring? You know, one of the things that would give us another benchmark, but the power of the MAP skills is really what are the students ready to learn? And so when do you need that data? In the fall and then in the winter. In the spring, then they go home in the summer. And so you're just using it more as a benchmark, because then as soon as they come back in the fall, we give it again, and so we have fresh data. So it would be a nice benchmark, but we have to balance what's happening with the testing and the time that we're using for assessments. Yes, but that's why we do the growth from year to year, so we look from fall to fall or winter to winter, which is the better one to look at, the winter to winter, and that's why I'm sharing that data, because the fall to fall, where they're just coming back in, doesn't show as much as you see from the winter to winter growth after they've been here for a year or a half a.
Or from fall to spring.
That would a growth over a year, yes. Okay. Yeah, but we have to balance that and what's.
Well, thank you, Amy. And as recently we've moved to, instead of just having a monthly financial report, a monthly student data report, it's very much appreciated as guiding principle number one. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Next, we will move to the monthly financial report. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. So we're through October, and seeing our education referendum fund, as we would anticipate, our expenditures are exceeding our revenue because most of our revenue is coming from property tax as it relates to the referendum, and so this is a very typical pattern. By the end of next month, we'll start to see a slight change in that as we begin to get some early tax draws. And if you were to compare this year with the previous year's general fund and referendum fund, there's a lot of similarities between the two, that you'll see that same trend of declining as we get closer to the end of the year. With our operation fund, it's kind of the same story. This fund is from local sources, and so it definitely declines as we go through the year, but it will start to come back as well as we get property tax draws. Again, we get some early draws in November, and then the balance of the funds in December. So we're pretty much right on track where we would expect to be.
Questions for Roger? Lynn?
From September to October here, under the education and referendum funds, we have about 10% increase in salaries. Is it because of recruiting new teachers?
I'm sorry, from which year, what are you comparing?
The salaries between September and October, from 6.3 million to 7 million. It's a 10% increase.
Trying to see if that's, it's not a 3-day month, or 3-pay month.
No, that's August and March.
Did we have retroactive pay in that period?
Let me look here. I think that is what it is, because after we settled prior to settling the teacher contract, we can't give any increases, including the step increase. And so I believe that is what's being reflected there. It's a catch-up from the salary settlement. Trying to remember when we paid that out.
Thank you.
I believe that's what it is, though.
Any other questions? Well, you answered my question, and it's obviously the annual question, I guess twice a year question, where we go up and down in cash balance.
Yep.
Property taxes coming in, even though we've got the steady basic grant throughout the year, we spend more than that per month, so cash balance goes up and down, and all the funds based upon that.
Yes, because the majority of our expenses, and particularly in the Education Referendum Fund, are salary and benefits, so those expenses are very regular as we have paydays every 2 weeks, whereas the revenue to support that is, being that part of that is from referendum and thus property tax, that comes in essentially twice a year, so it's what creates that pattern.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, we will move on to board member reports. Legislative update, Mrs. Spangenberg.
There we go. I've typed up quite a bit. I'll try to be as brief, but as many of you know, Tuesday, November 19th, was our Legislative Organization Day down at the State House, and it was also Red for Ed Day, which is very exciting. And Dr. Beresford, I didn't check with you in advance if you were going to talk about that, so I will have a few comments, and then you are welcome to chime in. So our Carmel Teachers Association leadership and hundreds of other Carmel professional educators joined over 20,000 public school educators and supporters who rallied downtown to encourage positive education law. Several of our CTA leaders met with our state legislators as well. And in general, we are very proud of their collective efforts to help shape public school law to support our students and our professional educators. Dr. Beresford and I have also met with our state legislators, not all of them yet. As you recall, Dr. B and I met with Representatives Jerry Torr and Donna Shabley on October 24th. Dr. Beresford had the opportunity to meet with the State Education Committee on November 7th with a team of other superintendents. And on the 8th, Dr. Beresford met with Senator Rotz, the Senate Education Committee Chair, as well as Representative Manning, the Chair of the House Education Committee. We have two upcoming meetings, one with Senator Ford on the 10th, and then Senator Spartz on December 4th. And in general, we are quite pleased with the positive response we've had from the letter that we sent out from the board and Dr. Beresford. The letter included our guiding principles, and Colleen made that contact for all of us, or on our behalf, on November 14th. And being that this is a non-budget year, our legislative goal really is to partner with our legislators by being a credible source from the field on matters related to lifelong learning. And per our letter, I'll quote, we included, we offer our support to develop initiatives to improve upon what the state's constitution describes as our general and uniform system of common goals, or common schools. We also offer to be a resource to help minimize unintended negative financial or organizational consequences that inevitably occur when implementing even the best intended policy. And some of the examples that we had cited and we discussed before at previous meetings was the Essa Compliance is an area that we have identified as common interest, the deregulation, dispute resolution, public question, student support services, and accrual accounting. And like I said, because it is our short session, our objective isn't to push financial legislation, but push legislation that will really benefit us in general and our students. The short session should start on January 6th. It'll end, and I was told firmly on March 14th because the NCAA tournament is going to be here, so it's got to be done. And as a small reminder, we do have the Hamilton County Legislative Luncheon that Hamilton Heights school system is going to be sponsoring for all of us. I believe with Church Chittle and Antrim is going to help sponsor that, and that will be on December 18th. And that's what we have for now.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Layla? Katie?
I just wanted to echo what you were saying about Red for Ed. It was an exciting day for the people downtown and for all of the teachers in our buildings. And I'll do a little humble brag on Dr. Beresford, who substitute taught in the high school that day. Biology? History?
It was actually a real soft job. It was, I call it a bunny job. I was given a test to the IB psychology students. So they were the delightful group. And they asked, there was some whispering going on, and finally a brave soul said, "Are you the superintendent?" And I said, "No, I'm a substitute. But tomorrow I'll be the superintendent." So I had a great day with the students.
Well, I just want to echo our thanks for always continuing to support our teachers and everything, and even going as far as being in the classroom so that they could attend. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the Carmel Clay Parks Department. Lynn?
Yes, I have 2 items to report this month. So ESE has tried to have advisory committee at each elementary school, but had a little or no participation from parents and guardians. So this year, ESE has created a single advisory committee for the district-wide, and the committee met last week, a week ago. So this shows that in addition to each semester, the feedback, the survey from parent and guardian, ESE also is trying another means here to solicit input and feedback to ensure continued success of the program. And the other one is the ESE program has received annually since 2011 a designation called from darkness to light partner in prevention. So this is a great program. This is a great recognition to recognize ESE's efforts here in its programming and staff training here about preventing and reporting childhood sexual abuse. So these are 2 reports.
Well, thank you for the update and the information. Do we have any questions for Lynn? No, thank you. Next, we'll move to Superintendent's report. Dr. Beresford.
All right, I'll go quickly, but just the Red for Ed, I will say that I'm so proud of the group we sent downtown to represent Carmel Clay Schools, and it was a good-sized group, over 100 and heading towards 140 teachers went down. I was equally proud of the teachers who stayed back home, who really covered classes, did everything that needed to be done to make sure our kids had a safe and productive day of school. And so it's that kind of balance and collaboration that really, I just love our staff and love our CTA, and just a real collaborative environment, and just love it. Let me move quickly here, but there's been a lot of good things going on. The highlight staff was once again named an NSPA Pacemaker winner, and that's like the Pulitzer Prize of student journalism. And so they were only one of 19 winners in the country, the only winner from Indiana, and so it's pretty prestigious. And it's the 8th consecutive pacemaker they've gotten. So our student journalism at Carmel High School is off the page there. See what I did there? Yeah. In addition, the highlight earned 2 more recognitions. Seniors Jackie Her and Hardy Patel are in first place nationally in the infographic of the year competition. So we had national champions. And if you know me, I love infographics. So I'll send you the link. It's amazing. It's an amazing infographic. And then the highlight also earned a 3rd place best of show in the large school website category. So the highlight web page and presence was nationally recognized as well. Flip over to the congratulations to the Greyhound cheer team. They won the small group varsity division, which earns them a bid to the national competition in February. November 13th, Carmel High School had a record number of 37 student athletes sign a national letter of intent to play their sport at the collegiate level. So the amount of work and discipline to be a student athlete is amazing, and for us to have 37, just congratulations to those kids, and can't wait to get we'll follow them on Twitter to see how they do in college. I know they'll do great. Congratulations to the CHS Math Club, who won the 54th annual Rose Holman High School Math Competition in Terre Haute. It's a big deal, but this is, our Carmel Clay steely-eyed mathematicians. It's their 11th consecutive win. And this year they won every grade level team competition, and then they won 22 out of 29 of the individual awards. So these mathematicians are off the chart.
Who's their coach?
Pardon me?
Do you know who the coach is?
I did not have this down. So I apologize for that. But so now while we're on the subject, Smoky Row. I was at the Spelling Bowl, and there was a team of steely-eyed spellers from every elementary in the group. They all had team T-shirts, and they came to spell. And the Smoky Row Rockets, they won the district spell bowl, but they also won the state spell bowl, ran the table with a perfect score of 56. The challenge words were not easy words to spell. I can tell you the last two rounds in each one of the last two words in each round were difficult, and so they just knocked it out of the park. Collegewood Elementary was third in the state, and the Orchard Park and Prairie Trace were both in the top 10. So it was a high stakes spelling bee. It was amazing. I also want to congratulate the Creekside Spell Bowl. And I don't know, when do you want to tell them some of the history of the Creekside Spell Bowl? They won the Indiana Academic State Spell Bowl with a perfect score of a 72 on November the 16th.
So this is the first time a Carmel middle school in Carmel has won the state champion since 1985.
So that team, they were ready to rock and roll and took the state title. So, I think there was somebody on that team that really carried them. I want to congratulate the Carmel High School football team. They defeated Maryville 38-17, and which punched their ticket to the state final. So we're going to go up against the dreaded Center Grove Trojans on Saturday night for the state championship in football. So wish our best to those guys, and as we go for another state championship. 2 years in a row being in the Luke is not an easy task in Indiana, and when you compete in the MIC conference. So really proud of that team. They're really coming together. I also want to do a shout out. Unfortunately, I did not get to any of the middle school musicals this year, but they were amazing. Layla, you attended both or one, or which one? And
I did Clay.
Okay, so what do you think?
Oh, yeah. Tony's.
Yeah, it was, yeah. All the feedback I got was about, boy, you blew it, you missed it, Dr. B. This one was, these were fantastic, so I wanted to give them some love. And then I have a bell ringer. Last night at the JW Marriott was the banquet for the Indiana Association for School Principals Principal of the Year Awards. And so they give 3 awards, one to the elementary, middle, and then high school Principal of the Year. And one of our own, Dr. Harmus, principal at Carmel High School, was the Region 5 area. They break into districts, so it was District 5. He was voted by his colleagues in District 5 to be the District 5 Principal of the Year. And so that put him in the running for the state. And he is the 2019 High School Principal of the Year for Indiana. And so fantastic honor for Dr. Harmus, and that qualifies him to be in the running for the National High School Principal of the Year. So we'll have that one coming down the pike after the holidays. The other fun part I just share with you was I was notified a little early that that he was going to be named the principal of the year, and we were kind of in a predicament because I knew a lot of people would want to attend that, but if they attended it, he would know something's up because it was unusual. So we did some trickery and deception, and I went and attended with Dr. Harmis's wife and about 20 principals and assistant principals from Carmel High School all went to dinner with Mr. McMichael at a different location. And then as Dr. Harmis was at the podium accepting his award, the door opened and 20 colleagues came in and surprised him. Dr. Harmis is typically not speechless. He was speechless, and it was a really wonderful time for him to be granted to earn that award, and also to have all of his colleagues cheering him on from the auditorium. So it was pretty special. So hats off to Dr. Harmis, and we knew he was the state principal of the year before they did the voting, but it's nice to see him recognized for the hard work, and also the way when he gave his speech said, it's about the team. It's about the team, and the thing that really kind of choked him, and I think the rest of us up, was he said, Carmel High School is such a special place, and basically it's an honor to work there. So great job, and congratulations, Dr. Harmis, and that concludes my superintendent's report.
Well, thank you for the report. Do we have any questions for Dr. Beresford? No. So we will move to upcoming meetings. As I said earlier, Wednesday starts Thanksgiving break. Hard to believe that we're at that point in the year. Our next regular session school board meeting is December 16th, and quickly after that will be December 23rd through January 6th, winter break. January 6th, we have a teacher work day, and then the students return on January 7th. At this early hour in the day, I will take a motion to adjourn. And a second. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you to all of you who stayed to the end.